and I should have been happy with that. But behind the scenes, I was a hot mess. The market had started out a little bit weird that year, and my year had started out slowly. I had zero under contract. So I was sitting at family reunion, nothing under contract. I had spent thousands of dollars to fly to Dallas. I was also in like the worst shape of my life. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And even worse, I was 172,000 in debt. So I had just added up all of my debt and from credit cards, taxes, student loans, and yes, 172,000 was the total. So you'd think at family reunion that would have been enough for me to focus on my business, figure out what I was doing wrong, go to every session, take a ton of notes, which is what I do now. But no, instead of focusing on my business and finances, I hung out with all of my market center friends and stayed out way too late every night. Basically stayed in my comfort zone. And I had no money, no prospects, pretty much no real plan, just honestly like a kind of a weighted blanket of anxiety and wine. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, like the world started shutting down. So I can remember James's face on the pivot calls, like on March 16th of 2020, just we have no idea what's coming. That kind of like scared me even more. So 2 weeks before my 40th birthday on March 30th, my birthday's April 13th, I moved into my childhood bedroom. So I moved into the suburbs with my parents. It was honestly like the last thing that I ever wanted to do, but I had no choice at that point. I still had nothing under contract. And honestly, this was the moment that everything changed. Ben Hardy talks about point of no return decisions. This was my point of no return. I had rented out my condo and put everything that I owned except for like my clothes in storage. And that was one of the kind of rock bottom moments of my life. But that one all-in decision really made me realize that movement creates momentum. So taking that one action to go all in really made me reevaluate my health, my finances, and ultimately my business. So for years, I knew I should be doing, you know, I shouldn't be staying up late watching Friends until midnight. I had been experimenting with events, but I wasn't doing them systematically. I knew I should be reaching out to my database, but I wasn't doing it consistently. I knew I should be sending an email newsletter every month, but I just kind of went out whenever I got around to finishing it. I was trying to reach out to everyone in a very inconsistent way, but I really wasn't connecting with anyone. So moving home really helped me finally decide to go all in on my business, and the universe started rewarding me right away. I got something under contract like that same week, I think, and it was a cash deal for $2 million. They, also knew they needed a change before everything shut down even more completely. So on April 11th, I got my highest check at that point, and maybe still since, but made $50,000 in one day, which was unheard of for me. And since I was living at home, I could put all of that towards my debt, which I did, which definitely would not have happened had I not moved home. So within a few months, I was down to my last student loan, which was just over 27,000. So, but three things that I really started focusing on even more at that point kind of changed everything. I focused on my dream client avatar. Just like all of you, I work with everyone, but I really started focusing on who do I want to attract to me through my marketing. So I got super clear on the types of clients I wanted to work with and just who I wanted to attract to me. And I started speaking to them directly through my social media and through my newsletters that I ended up doing a lot more consistently. And then I started, I had, like I said, been hosting events somewhat inconsistently. And then when we switched to virtual, was able to do them more frequently, more consistently, and even maybe more importantly, they were much more focused on my dream clients and their friends. So, um, I want you to start thinking about like, have you ever had that client that you really wanted to clone? For me, that was Kari. And Kari, this had happened a few months before everything shut down. She came to an open house with her sister. I, at that point, was working like 4 open houses every weekend. And she walked in wearing the same bag as me. When I met her at her office in like a trendy neighborhood in Chicago, a few days later for a buyer consult, we literally had like the same shoes on. I kind of wear a uniform of like a blouse and jeans every day. She was wearing almost the exact same thing. And we just had a ton in common. So she was one of those clients that was really fun to work with. She knew what she wanted, but wasn't super picky, and was moving from Chicago to San Francisco, or from San Francisco to Chicago. So she had a little bit of urgency and just an all around great client. We're still really good friends to this day. And working with her made me realize I did not need to reach everyone in Chicago. I just needed to find 30 first-time buyers exactly like Kari. Now I'm pretty clear on this dream client avatar, and it's evolved over time. But now for first-time buyers, my dream client avatar is women who are 28 to 34. They work in tech consulting or advertising. They typically have a good budget, like 500 to 600,000, and something, they're type A women. They have their, they have everything together. Um, One thing that we've noticed in the past few years, it's like they're no longer single women because that's a lot harder. Interest rates and prices have gone up. So a lot of times in the last couple of years, they've been engaged, but for us, it's still like the women driving the decision. So that's kind of who we're still trying to attract to us. Um, but so they're within a year of their wedding. So they're like they just got engaged and they're getting married in the next year, or they got married last spring and they're, now focusing on buying a home. So still the same personality type, just a slightly different stage of life now. We have This has evolved to having several different avatars. So started out with the first time home buyer, single professional women, and now still first time home buyer, engaged women, as well as upsizers who are now closer to my age. I'm 44, have, a couple kids or have a dog and really want a yard for the dog. Downsizers, I've named all these ideal client or dream client avatars, and the downsizers are my parents' names because we have great network in the suburbs near where they live. But this year, even I've gotten, continued to be strategic about this. And a lot of those dream clients don't have a ton of motivation. Upsizers and downsizers, aren't the ones making the moves right now. So I've had to think about like who's another avatar that I can target that's going to bring me listings. And one that I'm just starting to focus on would be probate attorneys. So as you start to think about who are those clients that you really loved working with, Seth Godin calls this the smallest viable audience. He says instead of trying to reach everyone, we should try and reach the smallest viable audience so that we can delight them so fully and completely that they tell the others. So, of those clients that you've loved working with for the past couple of years, who could you clone? And how much more enjoyable would this business be if you had 30 people just like them? Or if it is someone like an upsizer or downsizer that leads to 2 transactions, you only need to find 15 of them to reach that goal. Now, one big secret to all of this is often you are your niche or you are your dream client. So if you're struggling with like, I don't want to narrow down that far, which is so common because we all want to help everyone. We're people pleasers. We do help everyone, but we're trying to attract the people that we most know that we can, serve most completely to us. So think about, what do you like? What groups are you involved in? Do you have kids? Are you super involved in a church or school? Are all your friends downsizing or buying second homes? Do you love pickleball, dogs, wine? Chances are your favorite clients love these too. And there are things that you can find, that you have in common with them and can just start doing those things a little bit more often in order to meet more people just like those dream clients. So any group can be your niche too. So expanding that a little bit, seniors, divorcees, first-time buyers, women, golfers, hikers, pickleball players, estate sales, dog lovers, again, people who love wine, whatever you're interested in and your friends are interested in, that's most likely going to be your niche. And from there, you can start to paint the picture or create that character avatar of your dream client. So, actually, there's one person within Keller Williams, and I would love to meet her at some point, who focuses on people who speak sign language, which I think is just an amazing one because they can find her more easily. She's actually looking for other agents around the country that she can help mentor that also specialize in that, particular demographic. So, um, for right now, I just want you to think about like pick one of those groups, pick kind of like a particular client avatar that you can get really specific and just, you know, hone some things and activities around that group. You can always change it later. You probably are going to have more than one, but just start thinking about like what's one group that you can really go all in on and meet more of them. So you might be thinking, what does this have to do with events? And in my world, it's everything because once you know who you want to serve, it's much easier to figure out how to meet more of them. For me, events have been the main way that I've expanded my database. And I'm really not talking about big events. They're 5 to 25 people, and the smaller is oftentimes the better. Why did I turn to events? It was because I knew them. I spent years working as an attorney. I went to every like networking event that I could. They were all like stiff, people in suits, not that much fun, to be honest. I don't know why I even went to so many. And then my last job as an attorney was working for an actual events company that did mud run 5Ks all over the country, as well as a large scale music festival. So I was reviewing contracts for everything from porta potties to the Foo Fighters artist agreement. And once I got into real estate, and once I started thinking about how am I going to meet more professional women, it was really natural that I would start to think about how can I create networking events that I know people like me and my friends are going to just naturally want to go to. My goal, like, still is to just meet more people, like the friends of my favorite clients. This actually happened last night. We were supposed to host an event and it snowed, but one past client who was supposed to come and was bringing friends texted me like, "I'm so sorry you had to cancel because I was bringing my friend who she and her fiance are thinking of looking, and she connected me to them. We have a consult scheduled for tonight." Doesn't usually happen that quickly, but that is the benefit of these events. Like they create a way for your clients to just bring their friends to you, and it creates a much warmer introduction. So despite having no money, I started doing super small events and was just focused on getting professional women together to do things that I thought sounded fun. We did headshots, almost like the modern version of glamour shots, mini manicures, charcuterie workshops. I started small and just hosted them quarterly, just getting friends together that I knew would have something in common. And because the guests are VIPs and people who are like already in the pipeline, as well as their friends, the ROI is really high. One event that I did, I think it was last holiday season, so just over a year ago. It was a holiday mixology event, and I split the cost with a lender. So my portion was $750. We had 20 people come, and of that 20, we had 4 transactions arise out of it for about 60,000 in GCI. So a $750 spend that resulted in 660,000 over the next year. So, and that was strategic. We had invited people who we knew were just like possibly going to move within the next year, or invited friends, past clients who are in an age group where they're kind of moving around a lot. So, it's the events are a great way to just keep the pipeline warm, even if people say, like, I'm about a year out. Well, they're going to get every single event invitation for that next year. So after hosting 150 events over the past 5 years, I think a great event formula or the formula for a great micro event answers 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. Who, I think the best size is 5 to 25 people. I'm an introvert. I keep it very small. I want to be able to talk to everyone. And it's typically half our database and half their friends. What I think a unique activity or experience that those ideal clients are going to love is super important. I get invited to a ton of lender like happy hours and, promised one free drink. To me, that's not enough of a pull. There has to be something more. And it could just be that community, like maybe you're getting all in entrepreneurs together, but just doing something that that they're going to love, like a craft or just you know, uh, wine tasting, mixology, um, game night, anything like that there has to be a unique activity involved. A free venue is super important. This just really keeps the cost down. I've hosted a ton of events at our office. Um, in your home is great. I live in 900 square feet, so I have to be able to use my outdoor patio, which really limits the number of months that I can host outside in Chicago. But um, just anywhere, a bit local business that you work with a lot is a great example for a free venue. When I like Wednesday or Thursday nights, sometimes even Tuesday for about 2 hours, keep it small. We do early so that these girls can just bring a friend and then they go to dinner together. So like I'm not serving a ton of food. We order like one charcuterie board for every event. It's $160. They have something to nibble on, but I'm not serving a full meal. And the why is really important. You are the community facilitator. It's just about bringing people together. I don't call these client events. I just want to be the one that is kind of known as like the mayor of whatever kind of psychographic or, maybe it's your geographic farm, but really the goal of this is just to become known as that connector or facilitator. So, also, what's not needed: Pinterest-worthy decor, a ton of swag, or a large database. A great example of this is my sister just joined our team as a showing partner out in the suburbs, and she has about like 100 people in her database. She started doing a monthly cookbook club, and they pick like a celebrity cookbook, like Ina Garten just came out with one. Actually, I think that was her memoir, but some sort of celebrity cookbook that everyone's going to have fun with. They each pick a different recipe out of it and cook from the same cookbook. She hosted the first one, and then the other women have kept it going. So she's just the facilitator, kind of like nudging along, like who wants to host next, but it's all very inexpensive. Um, they are typically free for the attendees, but don't have to be. You can ask people to pay. Um, if your one kind of like hack for this is finding something where the tickets are already, it's a ticketed event that's a local business is putting on. I am doing this in a few weeks. I bought tickets to see an author. Brianna Wiest is coming to Chicago. She wrote The Mountain Is You, and she's amazing. A local bookstore is selling tickets to the event. They were $23, including the book. And I bought 6 tickets, invited 5 entrepreneur friends who I knew would love her. We're all going together, and they're offering to Venmo me for the ticket. So it's just not really costing me anything. We'll get to go to dinner beforehand and have a great night. So again, it's really thinking about how can you be the person that brings people together in a way that's like organic, inexpensive. Maybe it's just organizing for people to go play pickleball. That can be an event. It doesn't have to be even 20 people. So thinking through those raving fans that you identified at first, who are 3 people that if you put something on the calendar, they would come? And then what's something that those 3 people, like something in your neighborhood or something maybe that is already going on, that they would love to do and would kind of go out of their way to do that. Some great examples coming up in the next 2 months would be flower arranging, terrarium making, candle making, wine tasting, bourbon tasting, pottery painting, mixology, pickleball, book signing, anything that like you've seen on social media or Instagram and thought like that looks fun, I'd love to try it. Chances are your friends or raving fans would also be interested. So, um, pick a date right now. My challenge to you is to pick a date or pick something that you know is on the calendar, and text those 3 people today and ask them to bring a friend as well. So I really want you to just get into action today. Remember, movement creates momentum. You are the community facilitator answering that why. So this is all about just taking that first step and being the facilitator for, those 3 raving fans plus a couple of friends. So I know we're going longer than the 15 minutes, and I'm going to wrap this up quickly, but I would love to hear your wins. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'm at Meg Chicago, and just, share something that you learned today. And I would love to hear the events that you have planned. I'm always here to help. So Instagram DM is sometimes the easiest. But in order to start doing this consistently, just plan for quarterly this year. So if you get something going between now and the end of March, you can definitely get something in the next six weeks. That's Q1. You can plan something before the summer for Q2, end of summer for Q3, and then for the holidays for Q4. So keep them small, just get something going now. And especially if you do some of them at your house, you can do all of this for less than $1,000. And that's really going to be the most impactful thing you can do with your database. So to kind of, come back to where we were when we started, it never occurred to me that I would even be here talking to you 5 years ago, especially when James started Pivot. Like, I loved him. He had no idea who I was. So I'm just grateful to be here and giving back to this community. But, you know, I truly believe that what changed everything for me was going all in on my business in a way that catered to my strengths and my interests. So instead of kind of blindly following what was working for everyone else, I really had to think about like, what do I like to do? Where am I already strong? What are the interests that I'm already like seeking out, or where do I want to get more involved? And making that one point of no return decision to go all in was what changed everything. So last year I went from being a solo agent to there's now 6 of us on the team, 1 lead agent, 2 showing partners, and 3 full-time admin. We did 45 events last year, sold 65 units for over 950,000 in GCI. I spent 130 days and nights outside of Chicago, including 9 weeks from Barbados. So I've kind of used this strategy to build a business around me and my strengths, and kind of attracted other people to the team who love doing events just as much. And that last student loan that was just over 27,000 back in July 2020, I got a call from an attorney friend, and I had actually referred her a client. She's a personal injury attorney. I met someone at an open house who had like slipped and fallen, needed shoulder surgery when she slept at a Jewel, which is a grocery store. My friend settled the case, and she called me July 3rd of 2020 and just said, "Hey, where do I send your check?" I thought it was like a real estate referral check for a couple $1,000s. It ended up being $27,777. So when I took the steps to go all in, the universe rewarded me and kind of pushed me the rest of the way. So from there, I was able to move out of my parents' house a little bit later, buy a new condo, and, start building the business without a lot of debt and other things weighing me down. So you can be in a completely different place by the end of this year, just like I was in 2020, and your life can be totally recognizable in 5 years. All you need to do is decide to go all in, take one step in the right direction, and remember, movement creates momentum. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Meg.
We are going
Great.
to,
Thank you.
I think,
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks,
If you
Meg.
stay on the Zoom, okay, yeah, I think she stopped the live stream.
It's just us on Zoom now.
Okay, good. Yes. Well, thank you all for sticking around.
This is so great. Are we able to have a copy of it?
It's streamed on Pivot.
Okay, wonderful.
So,
I am so proud of you and inspired by what you've accomplished. Thank you.
oh, thank you. Well, yes, and I wanted to stick around for those who joined us on Zoom to just answer any questions that you have. I flew through things because this is supposed to be 15 minutes and I just went 26, so I don't know how to cut it down. So any feedback you have when I'm standing on stage delivering this at Family Reunion would be helpful. Hey, Leah.
Hi, great job. I'm so proud of
Thank
you.
you.
You always do such a good job, and I always love hearing your story. I do have a question, and I think Fabiola made it maybe put that in the chat as well. One thing I would either add or be ready to address is how do you bring up real estate at your micro events or do you not? And if you don't, then how do you make the connection for people that you're a realtor and you want their business?
They definitely all know that I'm a realtor. Usually they're signing up. Thank you for that question. And yeah, I wasn't looking at the chat at all. So um, if it's like a 20-ish person event, they've signed up on Eventbrite and they've gotten reminder emails from us. So they've seen that they're from a realtor and they've been invited by a past client. So I'm assuming that client is saying like, hey, my realtor is doing this. At the event itself, I keep the real estate discussion, like they'll bring it up and often ask like, hey, what's going on? But I basically introduce myself at the beginning. Hi, I'm Meg from Heyday Homes, a division of Keller Williams. We're a residential real estate team based right here in Chicago. We love helping and like working with local women-owned businesses. We host a ton of events. I really put the emphasis on community and events. So it's a little bit less on real estate. Sometimes I'll give like a 30-second market update. The inventory is super low right now. Buyers are having trouble finding what they want. Their buyer demand is really high. So if you know anyone who, is thinking about selling or owns an investment property, like, we would love to hear from them. But I really feel like the fortune's in the follow-up. So it's like I keep the real estate discussion very light and then they're getting follow-ups from us. Sometimes it's a market update. Often it's like just a text thanking them for coming and hey, if you have any real estate questions, we're here to answer. Does that help?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Tanya.
Hey, I just had a small question. Thank you for doing this. I love the ideas. And so I know you want to keep it small. So when you advertise for the event, are you advertising to like only your Mets and your database? Are you advertising it to Facebook at all, or is it just to your database?
It is just to our database. So of the 45 events we did last year, about 20 were micro events specifically and these are mostly for VIPs. I mean, I guess Mets as well, depending on how big your database is. And then the other like 25 were partner events meant to grow our database. So of those 20, they were not on social media at all until after the event. So they weren't in our email newsletter typically. So last night is a good example. We were supposed to do, it's rescheduled, but it's a lip lab, which is actually it's a franchise. So there are others around the country. It's a really fun idea. We're going to make our own lip gloss. I knew this one would fill up super quickly. So we just texted our VIPs and they all jumped on it right away, invited friends. So, the 20 spots, which is what we were limited to, filled up without us even getting through our entire kind of like VIP list. And another kind of like note on that is I knew this one would appeal to more like the 30-ish. I've got a bunch of clients who are kind of like around 32. And so once when I start to see the trend of who's able to make it, then I continue with that. So it's like once there were like 5 girls who are around 32, I'm like, okay, who else should I reach out to that I know they're going to have stuff in common? Maybe they work in the same neighborhood or live in the same neighborhood. You know, there's a lot of alumni from my school that I've helped who are on my list who are also in that age group, but I know they don't really know each other. So then I like introduced, like reached out to them first. So I try, like, I want these to have a community feel and for people to feel like they're meeting people at the event instead of just coming and only talking to their friends. So I want to think of, I'm kind of curating the group a little bit, if that makes sense. Um, so yes, there are events where it's to the entire database, it's meant for more unmets, and those the distinction is like for lip lab, we're paying per person or for like a wreath making. So I typically, if it's like, if the venue is charging me a per person cost, that's typically $50 to $70, then I limit it to 20 people. If it's something like a kid's musician where it's just a flat fee, no matter if it's 5 people or 50 people, then that's going to go out to the whole database. So it just depends on whether there's like slots or not. Hey, Lou.
Hey Meg, how you doing? Did you use any data to formulate your avatar or your ideal client? Meaning, was there statistical data behind who's likely to transact, or was it all just gut feel?
Um, at first it was gut feel because it was my friends and you know who I was already, it was really who I was already working with. So I was looking at trends of like who uh, who I liked working with, who I knew would have so Kari, for example, is my age. And so when she bought, she was 36 probably, or 38 when she moved to Chicago. But maybe a better example is these girls who I just mentioned who are all coming to Lip Lab who were 32. A lot of them bought when they were like 28 or 30. So I, in this case, it was like all one book club. So I started helping, like one introduced me to the other girls in the book club. And then it became this group of like 6 who had all kind of like been that same age group. And so just sort of seeing trends. And then I did some like, I think especially for those, I was doing some seminars at the time too, like first time homebuyer seminars. So I started like focusing on it, like for that group, you know, they also worked with a lot of people who were around 30. And so I would try and get into their office with their women's group and do a lunch and learn specifically for the women's group, like a smart women and real estate type thing. Um, so it was like a combination of a gut feeling with who I was working with at the time, but also like kind of like they were also, you know, like statistically, they were also buying and had a good budget. And I knew they were working at companies like Google where they were making decent salaries. So, who is yours? Do you like, could I help you identify your ideal clients or what?
Yeah, so I just actually started a Facebook community called Next Chapter Moms. So it's all of us that are going through this transition where our kids are leaving the house or we're becoming empty nesters, or we've got this rotating door, kids are leaving, coming back, some of us moving into retirement. So I just launched this, but I've got a great following so far. So I'm like, now what's next?
I love that. Well, and you can find so many different like speakers and events, and just to continue to bring them all together, I think the question is really going to be how motivated are they to move? Because what I'm seeing with upsizers and downsizers, to be honest, it's like they maybe want to move, but once they start looking at the costs, it's just they don't have a lot of motivation. And so I think if there's something that you could do to sort of like, I would think a hot topic with that would be like um, just planning for 15 years from now, like a little bit of like investment advice for women type thing. An agent in the suburbs just told me that I happened to speak to her. She was going to the local library was hosting a 55 plus now what seminar. I don't know who else was involved in it, but she said last year she picked up like 5 clients from it. So like you could do, I can have a ton of ideas on just like informational type seminars around that it doesn't have to be what I like to do is something that's real estate is like included in it, but like maybe it's packaged as something that's non-real estate. So like someone's not necessarily going to come to a downsizing seminar if they're not even thinking about that, but they might come to a home organization seminar that like, the kids have moved out, how do I get organized and redo their room? And like maybe they're thinking about downsize. You can talk about like, oh, if you want to sell 3 years from now, to sort of plant the seeds. So I don't know if that helps.
Yes, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's do these last two. Hey, Kim.
Thank you. First
Yeah.
time on Zoom, no kidding. Do you have partners to offset your costs for the more expensive outings? And do you also include like season passes to like athletic team events or theater? And do you if so, do you incorporate that into your business?
That's a great idea. I don't incorporate season passes. I do have lender partners. So we're an attorney state, so attorneys are a great partner. Title companies would be as well. Kind of like the standard real estate partners do help sponsor the events. And I've really tried to partner with people who understand sort of like the event game. So one of my go-to lenders who is, you know, she goes to the same chamber of events I do. She lives in my neighborhood. She's a single professional woman. Um, we have a lot of other kind of vendor partners in common. So she really loves these professional women's events. And then I have another lender who's like a dad out in the suburbs. And so when we host family events, he's a good partner for that. So again, I'm sort of like trying to match them up with what I think like they want it to be fun too. So if they love doing craft events or if they're like have kids, like some of it was just sort of sitting down with them and brainstorming like what do you think would be a fun event and who do you think if maybe they would want to invite people too. The other best partners have been like our gifting studio is really cute, where I buy closing gifts from her. She's been awesome to just host at the studio. So they don't necessarily need to provide money. Just a free venue is a huge help too. So, um, and then for the ticket question, like I have thought about there's like a Broadway and Chicago series. If I just bought 4 tickets and every time something came around, found 3 new people to go. Like that's how probably I would do that is just like make it a very targeted sort of like VIP thing of, I don't want to go every week, but if it were, once every 2 months, like that would be something that I'd be interested in and then could make it more of a business thing.
I love the networking, the intimacy of what you're describing because I have given away a lot of things, but I have not always put myself in the mix. Like I'll get tickets, I'll have a giveaway, but that's it. I have a
Yeah.
pie day. They come and they take, but I'm trying to follow sort of the inspiration that you're sharing and create those relationships by actually being more present and connected with them. Because even tomorrow, I'm giving away dinner for 2 for Valentine's Day. Well, I'm not going to show up at dinner, right?
Hey, I'm going to be third wheel at your dinner.
Right. I'm just trying to think of other ways where I could create a situation where it's an opportunity to deepen the relationship. I have done spa days, but that was really expensive. I had like, I don't know, 40 or 50 people and everybody got a manicure and a pedicure. And I probably spent $2,000 and I had a
Yeah, it's
6-foot charcuterie board and it was nice. And we had a musician that we also paid. So I was like, whoa.
I think doing like so when I did the mini manicures, it was a new kind of like cool, it's a kind of trendier manicure place that you pay online and it's all through credit card. And I just arranged with them to do just like a polish change. So it was like $15 each. So I think you're on the right track. But just maybe even for those kind of like events that seem nicer, making sure that there's enough time for people to mingle and like, because I think the spa can be, they're just sitting there on their phone because everyone's too far apart to talk or something like that. So yeah, I like all those ideas. And I think one thing for, if you're in a couple, a lot of people's like partner can get involved in this because you can invite couple friends to all do whatever wine tasting or like maybe going to a concert or something. Like we have in Chicago Ravinia, which is an outdoor concert venue, and you bring a picnic and it's fancy. I have done that in the past. And so like that would be a really fun, if it's a concert where you can still kind of like talk through the concert because it's like on a lawn, could be a good one. If you have something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Duana, I'm sorry if I'm
Good afternoon. I really enjoyed this session. I have one question. What is Pivot?
Oh, that is the Facebook group that hosted this. So James's Pivot group. We will make sure that you get an invite to it, but it is an awesome Facebook group that just has a ton of resources and like like an amazing community that's part of it, a daily call. So I'm not even encapsulating all of the magic that is Pivot, but it's a great, great community.
Thank you very much. I'll check it out. Thank you. I
Awesome. Thank
appreciated
you.
your
Yeah.
presentation this afternoon.
Hey, Ann, last one.
Hey, Meg, great job. Just a little snippet for you when you said, how do you cut it down?
Yep.
If you type out your presentation, speaking at a moderate pace, 2 minutes per page.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, it's a technique. Thanks, bye.
I love it. Oh, yes. Tony just put the Facebook group in the chat. So for Pivot. Well, thank you all so much for joining. If there's any questions I can answer, I would love to help and hope to see some of you in Vegas next week. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank
And
you.
thanks, Grace, for helping.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thanks, Meg.
Great job. Thanks.